Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School, where we break down the deepest issues, the most intense debates, the most controversial topics going on in the world today. And tonight is no exception. Tonight, of course, we are dealing with one of the most historic moments in American history, one of the most historic moments in American political history. As you all know, this past weekend, if you don't know, you should know, this past weekend, President Joseph Robinette Biden announced that he would not be seeking re-election. This is not a surprise to many of us. Y'all know, if you watch this show every night, you know that we called for this a long time ago. Not that we advocated it, although we did, but we also called for it, meaning that we announced that this would happen. We predicted that this would happen. And so pretty much tonight, all we're going to be talking about is the fallout from this. We're going to be trying to make sense of this. We're going to be trying to break down for everybody what happened, how we got here, why we got here, and also what it all means. It's no small thing for a president to step down, and it's no small thing uh, for the entire country to be, if not uniform, certainly very close to uniform in supporting this decision. As you all know, 16 governors have already come out in defense. Defense might be the wrong word, in support of Kamala Harris. 16 people have already defended their decision. I'm talking about governors: Andy Beshear from Kentucky, Roy Cooper from North Carolina, Wes Moore from Maryland. They've all come out. And those are ones that might seem like familiar suspects. Those might feel like people who you would expect to come out and do this. But what about Governor Gavin Newsom when he comes out and says the exact same thing? I support Kamala Harris unequivocally. What happens when Josh Shapiro, another person who was looked at as a potential nominee for Pennsylvania, comes out and says he supports Harris? Now let's look at the Senate. Dick Durbin, Mark Warner, Kirsten Gillibrand, John Fetterman. They all endorse it. You know, when John Fetterman endorsed you, he's barely a Democrat these days. They all did so. Of course, Nancy Pelosi more recently stood up in defense of Kamala Harris. That was something that we did not expect. But she, in Twitter, said, that with, enormous pride, et cetera, I support Kamala Harris. Now, why does she make that decision? Why does Kamala Harris, why do the governors, why do the senators all come forward in defense of Kamala Harris, in support of Kamala Harris? Well, there's a reason that we're going to get to in just a second. 161 members of the House of Representatives followed Nancy Pelosi's lead, the Speaker Emerita, in supporting Kamala Harris as well. Then Bill Clinton, then Hillary Clinton co-signs Bill Clinton with her kind of retweet of him. They all threw their support behind Vice President Harris. So you got a president, a former first lady, Secretary of State, probably more important in this case. They issued a joint statement. Everybody seems to be supporting, to a large extent, this Democratic maneuver. And there's really no better word to use here than maneuver. This is a maneuver if you've ever seen a maneuver. I have been very clear and consistent in saying that this move was going to happen. I have been very clear and consistent in saying that Biden was going to have to go. But what was also part of my analysis, what was also part of my framing, is that the prominent Democrats, the most prominent Democrats in the world, were also going to pressure Biden. That Biden wasn't just going to bow out because he felt like bowing out. No. Joe Biden was going to bow out because he can't win, and his fundraising is low. He's de-energizing the base. If you're a vulnerable Democrat in the House or the Senate, you don't want Joe Biden to be your guy. So then why would Biden get such support from top Democrats? Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Why would Biden why would Biden get such support from top Democrats for all this time? Well, because they were trying to work behind the scenes to push him out. They were trying to work behind the scenes to get him to leave on his own accord. They feel like, and I don't necessarily disagree, that Joe Biden has served this country. If you're going to run an empire, this is kind of as good as you can run one, right? Um, there's nothing. He fulfills their interests. He meets their needs. Joe Biden has certainly had a life of service, even if you don't like the service that he's giving. He certainly had a life of service, and so he deserved to leave with dignity. He deserved to leave on his own terms. He deserved to leave under his own conditions. And so they kept saying to him, "Hey, it's time to go, Joe. Hey, it's time to exit stage left, Mr. President." But he kept saying no, like a punch drunk fighter, like somebody who's past their prime, like somebody who doesn't quite get that they can't win the fight or maybe win another fight. Joe Biden kept saying, "I'm one good debate away. I'm one good week away. I'm one Trump bad week away from being back on top. I beat him before. I'm the only person in the world who's beaten him in a race. So why not bet on me?" And for a long time, that was compelling to people. Even if they didn't buy it, they didn't have no choice but to listen. But Nancy Pelosi kept pushing. Nancy Pelosi kept turning the screws. President Obama kept turning the screws. And then Chuck Schumer kept turning the screws. And eventually Hakeem Jeffries kept turning the screws. And before you knew it, you didn't have a base. And the whispers turned to murmurs. The murmurs turned to grunts and groans. The groans turned to anonymous statements. The anonymous statements turned to attributed statements. And the attributed statements turned into demands. And so suddenly, Joe Biden didn't have a choice. Nancy Pelosi literally came to him with a message of, "You can do this the easy way or you can do this the hard way. I've been doing this the easy way for you," leaving vague messages on national television and interviews talking about what could or couldn't happen. But now you're going to do this the hard way. That's when you started to hear the grumblings and the people saying they're going to run against him, and the people saying there needs to be an open primary, and people saying there needs to be an open convention, and people saying that Joe Biden can't do this, and people saying that they weren't going to fundraise a nickel for the party if Joe Biden was still on there. And we know that this is a donor class that dominates the conversation. We understand that everyday Americans don't determine who the president is going to be. Everyday Americans don't determine who the nominee is going to be. Everyday Americans don't determine any of this stuff. It's the powerful, it's the wealthy who do that. And so the powerful and the wealthy were saying, "Look, we're not going to raise another nickel for you." And once that happened, the game was over in everybody's mind, except still y'all's president, Joseph Robinette Biden. And it wasn't until this weekend when his closest aides showed him the polling. It wasn't until this weekend when his most trusted analysts showed him that there was no path to victory, that he was actually going to get mollywopped, that he said, "Fine." So that's when you start to hear the murmurs about what's going to happen. And they got louder and louder and louder. And then on Sunday, as I promised y'all, I told y'all this is going to happen on Sunday, Joe Biden steps down and Kamala Harris steps in. But the question is, why did they all uniformly endorse Kamala Harris? It would make you think, you would think by reading this that Kamala Harris just has uniform support. You would think by watching what has transpired that Kamala Harris is universally endorsed and loved by the Democratic Party. We just saw another vote in Pennsylvania from delegates. We saw Arizona. We've seen Kamala Harris right now, at this moment, right now, at the time of this recording. Well, we're live, but you know what I'm saying. At this moment, Kamala Harris is only 600 delegates away from securing the nomination. Obviously, it will officially happen at the convention, but she's only 600 delegates away right now. So, in light of that, we have to ask, how do we get from a place where people are calling for Gavin Newsom to run, they're calling for Hillary Clinton to come out of the woodwork, they're calling for Josh Shapiro, they're calling for Whitmer, they're calling for all these people to come out of the woodwork. They're calling for an open convention, a contested convention. Joe Manchin was threatening to go from being an independent and really just a dick who pretends to be a Democrat, but is really a Republican. Manchin said he was going to maybe go back to being a Democrat just to run in the primary. I mean, just to run and compete for the nomination. I mean, this is how intense it was. But when the news hit yesterday, it wasn't split. It wasn't divided. Pelosi comes out. The Clintons come out. Again, as I said, all the opposition, Newsom comes out. Whitmer says, I'll be your campaign manager. Shapiro comes out. I mean, this is amazing. Nancy Pelosi comes out. Everybody comes out in support of Kamala Harris. This tells you, again, that the power brokers in the party have already decided who the standard bearer is going to be. And the reason is partly pragmatic. We don't want the convention to look like a mess, because if it looks crazy at the convention, it looks like a mess, we lose votes. If Kamala Harris gets bloodied by her own party 107 days before the presidential race, the party loses. If someone other than Kamala Harris emerges and you lose the Black votes, you lose Southern votes, you lose women voters, and you certainly lose Black women voters, who are the most loyal base in the party. If Kamala Harris gets beaten out for this nomination, if all of that happens, you lose. So, as the song goes, if you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with. So ultimately, the Democratic Party and the top Democrats had to close ranks around Kamala Harris, not because they wanted to, and not because they thought she could win more decisively than someone else, but because they know that it was their best pragmatic shot. And so all the people now that are who were kicking Joe Biden's ass a month ago and complaining about him and whispering and being all of these things to him, they're now calling him a champion. They're talking about how selfless he was, how he chose country over self. Nah, bro, he was going to lose. He didn't want to lose in disgrace to Donald Trump. This is a better life. If you're going to lose anyway, you might as well look like a hero. You might as well look like it was your choice. Now those people are championing his legacy and celebrating him for his public service. And the people who are fighting Kamala are now saying that she is so ready to be president. We stand behind her. We can't wait for her to win. We can't wait for her to be the next big thing. This is where we are. So that raises one more question, though, y'all. It raises one more question. If you notice, and by the way, if you're just joining high school right now, hit the like button. Also, type present in the comments. Let people know you're present for school. And tell your classmates where you're joining in from. Right? Tell me your city, tell me your state, tell me your country, tell me exactly where you are writing in from. Also, if you're wondering why I'm in this crazy looking background and why my audio and video looks like this, I'm in the hospital right now. I'm okay. one of my family members had surgery today, so I've been in the hospital for the last 15 hours. That's why I have my dad jokes of how. Let me take this down. Give y'all a minute to, I'm being a little ridiculous, but I got my dad jokes of how I roll shirt on. I'm here in the hospital. But this is a historic day. Normally I would have canceled the show, but there's no way to cancel this show on a night like this. So I just want y'all to understand the context of why I'm here. I want y'all to understand the context of why it looks and sounds like this. It's not because I don't care. It's because I care so much that I had to be here. I see somebody say you ain't got to explain. I feel that. I appreciate that. I love that. But at the same time, I just, I always like to explain because I do put a lot of time and pride into what I present to you all. And I can't be out here asking y'all to donate to the channel so that I can build a studio and y'all come in and it looks like I was trapped in a woodshed. We exist in the context is some deep philosophical, brilliant, spiritual, wonderful, practical shit to say. That's so fire. Thank you for saying that. You don't know how much that meant. And I'm shout out to all the people who are writing in from all these amazing, amazing places. But I want to move on to another topic that's connected to this topic, because as we watch the presidential race, and as all of the prominent Democrats in the world are beginning to step up and speak out in support of Kamala Harris, there are some noteworthy exceptions. We have not heard any official endorsement from Chuck Schumer. We haven't heard any official endorsement from Hakeem Jeffries, not as of this moment. He's, of course, the minority leader in the House. He is planning to meet with her soon, but he has not endorsed her. But, those are interesting. Those are important. Those are whatever, right? But the most interesting one is from Barack Obama. On Sunday, shortly after Biden announced that he was going to step aside and Kamala Harris was going to be the nominee, President Obama, who is the most popular politician in the world still, the leader of the Democratic Party, the standard bearer of the party without a doubt, he tweeted. He said, Joe Biden has been one of the most consequential presidents, as well as a dear friend and partner to me. Today, we've also been reminded again that he's a patriot of the highest order. He then goes into a kind of a full statement about his time in office, his choice of Joe Biden, and his support. And he ends that statement by saying something particularly interesting that I think y'all need to really hear in context. I want you to listen to this. President Obama says, we will be navigating uncharted waters in the days ahead, but I have extraordinary confidence that the leaders of our party will be able to create a process in which an outstanding nominee emerges. I believe that Joe Biden's vision of a generous, prosperous, and united America that provides opportunity for everyone will be on full display at the Democratic Convention in August. And I expect that every single one of us are prepared to carry that message of hope and progress forward into November and beyond. For now, Michelle and I just want to express our love and gratitude to Joe and Jill for leading us so ably and courageously during these perilous times, and for their commitment to the ideals of freedom and equality that this country was founded on. So that's powerful. That's beautiful. That's very Obama-like, great language, flowery language, interesting, points made, necessary observations made. But there's two things very noteworthy about President Obama's words here. Number one, he doesn't endorse Kamala Harris. Everybody else did. Who bothered to make the statements? One thing to not say anything, but he stood forward and didn't say that. But he also said something else that's super interesting. He said, I have extraordinary confidence that the leaders of our party, as if he's not the leader of the party, will be able to create a process from which an outstanding nominee emerges. So everybody else has Kamala Harris as the heir apparent. Obama says we'll be able to create a process from which an outstanding nominee. And then he says that at the Democratic convention in August, there will be something on full display, right? The generous, prosperous, and united America. So he's saying we want a process, and we want to show that process at the convention. It sounds very clearly to me that President Obama is calling for an open convention. He's saying we shouldn't coronate Kamala Harris right now. We should have an actual convention. Now, my sources have been telling me that for weeks. Long before Biden stepped down, I told you Obama was pulling the strings here. I told you that Obama wanted Biden out. And I told you that Biden didn't want Kamala Harris to just slide into the seat. He wanted a process. He wanted an open convention. So why is Obama seemingly in the minority here? And what would an open convention look like? And how can you call yourself a champion of democracy if everybody don't get to decide who the president gonna be? Anyway, joining me to help make sense of this is somebody who I admire a great deal, somebody who is smarter than me, and certainly knows this information better than me. And so I am joined by Cenk Uygur. He is, y'all know him, the Young Turks. He's a legend in these media streets. My friend, thank you for joining me. Help me understand, first of all, why President Obama hasn't said anything in the way of an endorsement when the Clintons have, all the power brokers seem to have done that. Why has he not done it?
Yeah. At this point, the ship has probably sailed and it's probably too late. But I think that there were a number of smoke signals that President Obama sent that were not received. And he's not alone in this. And so I'm curious to see how this is going to play out in the long run. So first, Barack Obama's top advisor is who? David Axelrod. By the way, the top advisor to the Clintons is James Carville. They were both out there for about, I was doing it for about a year to 10 months. They were out there for at least 6 months going, not Biden, not Biden. Okay. And that was Obama and the Clintons saying, guys, what are you doing? He's definitely going to lose. Can't you read poll numbers? And in my case, it wasn't progressive versus establishment, which was the old battles. I just don't want Donald Trump to win. I don't. I think that what he did was a real coup attempt, and I think I'm one of the few Democrats who apparently thought that democracy really was on the line. And so, but apparently Obama and the Clintons agreed with me. So that was the Biden portion. Now, when you get to
the is that as big a deal as it sounds to me that first of all, the Clintons and the Obamas are on the same page on this, but also that Biden and his team are ignoring the two most successful political campaigns, Democratic political campaigns, maybe of the second half of the 20th century.
Yeah, 100%. What was amazing to me is that mainstream media couldn't see that Axelrod and Carville were speaking for Obama and the Clintons. I mean, if Obama was going to send someone to make that statement, who would it be?
Right, Axelrod.
It would be David Axelrod, obviously, right? And for the Clintons, it would either be Carville or Begala, and they both said it. So there's just no question that that's what the message they were trying to send. It's just nobody was able to effectively receive it. In fact, on a show, I said that that's what they were doing. And somebody said to me, "Oh, that sounds like a conspiracy theory." I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, here's the conspiracy theory: is that David Axelrod and Barack Obama don't speak. Okay? Right. So, anyways, but we're past that now. Joe Biden begrudgingly made the right decision, but that's going to be relevant for the Kamala Harris portion of the conversation. So, Obama, Pelosi, Schumer, and Jeffries all did not endorse her. And in fact, in the beginning, Biden didn't endorse her. He put out a second statement 30 minutes later after everybody was like, whoa, where's Kamala Harris?
I was freaking out when I saw him make the first statement, but didn't endorse Kamala. I mean, at least Black group chat, text mess, everybody was like, what is he doing? He's about to sink this campaign before it starts. Do you think he was establishing some timing for dignity's sake and for his own kind of space to shine, or do you think that was a miscalculation that he quickly corrected?
So this is where it gets complicated. So Axios is a story that is very credible and lines up with what I've seen before, which is that the Biden team didn't want it to be Kamala Harris. And part of the reason that he was slow rolling his own exit, 98% of the reason was his gigantic ego. Let's be clear about that. Okay.
For sure.
But 2% of the reason, whether he's right or wrong, was his concern about Kamala Harris and that she wouldn't be able to pull this off. But Biden's at this point, I don't think we should put a lot of stock in his judgment, given what's happened.
Right. He thought he could win.
Yeah. And he was positive, not only that he could win, but that he was the best possible candidate, which was preposterous. He was literally the worst candidate that we had. Again, it's not to beat up on a guy who made the right decision at the end. And let's be fair, Trump never let go of power, and Biden did belatedly. But okay, good. Credit where credit is due. I'll take it. I'm just setting up the stage so you know where the players are in terms of how they feel about Kamala Harris. So then you get to Obama and Pelosi and the others also, I emphasize the same exact statement that you did, Mark, from Obama in two different videos. He very clearly said it should be an open process decided at the convention. And so it doesn't get any clearer than that. That means he did not want it to be Kamala Harris right out of the gate. And so first I'll just assume for a second, and then we'll see later maybe if that I was right about this or not, that they might have the same concerns that I have. Well, the first one is benign, which is, hey, we didn't test Biden in this primary and it was a disaster, right? And so I think Kamala Harris might prove to be the strongest of the candidates that we have, but I'd like to test it first, and I'd like to vet her a little bit first. And I don't think we did that. I think we should have gone to an open convention. I think she was the favorite and would have won there. And in a sense, she already did win because she, according to the Associated Press, has collected enough delegates now that she could win the nomination.
But unopposed. I mean, if people were asked, do you want Kamala or Newsom? Do you want Kamala or Shapiro, Kamala or Whitmer, Kamala or Kelly? Do they make the same choice?
Yeah, I don't know that they do. But hey, at the same time, they weren't exactly profiles of courage. You did have a window here to challenge her, and you didn't. So, but if you weren't strong enough to challenge her, you probably weren't strong enough to be the candidate. So that tells you something as well. Okay, but bottom line is the second part is not benign, and we just don't know if it's right or not. It's entirely possible that they know something we don't know about Kamala Harris. And the fact that they were all hesitant, especially when everyone there is in the establishment. It's not like it's progressive versus establishment. It's not like they have significant policy disagreements. So it makes me worry. It makes me worry that they know something and that we rushed into this thing before fully considering all of our options.
You know, I think it's far simpler than that. I think they just remember that she polled in single digits in the 2020 primary, that she couldn't beat Pete Buttigieg or Elizabeth Warren or anybody else or Bernie or anybody else. That when voters had a chance to choose her, they overwhelmingly wanted anybody else. And look, that's been Biden in '88, that's been Biden in '92, that's been Biden in, a million times before. But his vice presidency catapulted him. He became Uncle Joe, and we loved him as a nation, right? That didn't happen with Kamala Harris for all the reasons. I'm not saying they're all her fault, but at the end of the day, people don't love her. This could just be a thing if they know that people don't like her. If anybody knows it's Hillary Clinton, that if you're framed as somebody who's not likable, then it's hard to win. That's very gendered, it's very sexist, it's very problematic. But at the end of the day, people vote for certain kinds of people, and I'm thinking it's really that simple. They just think other people are more likable.
Yeah, maybe, but I see. Here's how I view it, Mark. When it's a progressive, Bernie Sanders or whoever else it might be, the establishment is not shy about letting you know what their opinion is, right? So they will say, "Oh, watch out, radical, he'll lose." Right. They'll throw everything. And before 2020 started, the campaign started, I said, "Watch, by the end, they'll call Bernie Sanders anti-Semitic." And they did, right? So they'll throw the kitchen sink at you if they don't agree with you. Really, it's not really policy as much as do you take corporate cash or don't you take corporate cash? Right. And if you don't take corporate cash, they're going to hit you with everything they got. This is not a situation like that. They're all in the same camp. They're all in the same establishment camp. Their policies are nearly identical. So there's no reason for Obama, Biden, Clintons, et cetera, not the Clintons, because they came out right away for her, but Pelosi, Schumer, et cetera, for them to have concerns about Kamala Harris. That's why I'm worried that it's something else, that it's something about her, particular to her. And I've talked to some people that are very core to the Biden administration without giving away who it is. And when I challenged whether Biden could prosecute this campaign, they were adamant that he could. They were wrong, but they were adamant. When I got to Kamala Harris, they were silent. And I thought that silence was telling. And so let's hope I'm wrong about that. And I'm not saying that that's the case. I just don't know. I see troubling signs, and I'm a little worried.
I'll tell you one thing. If there's a person that you want to face when you have a sketchy background, it's Donald Trump. I mean, how sketchy does your background have to be to make voters say she's too shady or she's too dishonest? It would be like it's like if someone had a sex assault allegation or a corruption allegation right now going against Donald Trump. You'd be like, yeah, that just makes them even again, right? I mean, whatever it is, it would have to be pretty problematic. Do you think ultimately Obama comes around and the rest of the power brokers come around, or does he just remain silent at this point?
Oh, no, that's imminent. Look, I don't know anyone that wanted an open convention more than I did, but if the Associated Press is right and she already has a majority of the delegates, it's already over. And in which case, Obama wouldn't want those questions that I just asked lingering around for other people to figure out. So Pelosi endorsed her this afternoon, and Schumer and Jeffries are almost certainly next, probably tomorrow morning. And then Obama will close the deal probably some point tomorrow.
Fair enough. Before you go, Cenk, I want just one more question for you. The VP question. There is a short list. I mean, there's always a long list, but there's a short list of people who make the most sense. She can't pick Newsom because of the California thing, who otherwise would be my choice for her. Maybe. Mark Kelly is the person I think makes the most strategic sense. But there's Kelly, there's Shapiro, there's some dark horses like Cory Booker and others. Some people say it should be an all-woman ticket, just double down on this and really try and usher change in. Who do you think is the most likely choice? Who do you think would be the wisest choice?
Yeah. So I have one strong opinion. Based on what you said, I'm not sure you're going to like it. But other than that, I just have leanings. So the one strong opinion is Mark Kelly feels like Tim Kaine to me. Generic white dude from kind of a swing, like Arizona is a swing state. And back when Tim Kaine was picked, Virginia was a swing state. But it really doesn't bring anything to the table, and it's boring. He's very corporate friendly. He didn't even sign the PRO Act. So that one doesn't feel right to me at all.
Tim Kaine was a vanilla white guy running against Hillary Clinton, who was a vanilla white woman doing her best impersonation of a vanilla white guy. So I could see why it doesn't work for Kaine, but is it more of a Biden move? Is it more of as a new breed of candidate and one that's not fully legible to the electorate? Do you need an old white guy there for stability?
But look, first of all, I'm not sure that you do. And I'll get to that in a second. But if you thought you did, trust me, you got enough white guys to pick from.
Right. There's no shortage.
Yeah, I mean, you can go Roy Cooper, Andy Beshear, John Shapiro, Mitch Landrieu. You got a billion choices, right? Yeah. And a lot of them are good. Andy Beshear won in Kentucky twice, but you'll find that his positions are a little bit more conservative than ours, right? Of course. Roy Cooper was kind of effective. J.B. Pritzker has a ton of money, right? That's relevant, right? And he's a relatively effective governor. So tons of good choices. So I don't think that you got to go to Mark Kelly in order to get a swing state or to get a white guy. So in terms of do you need a white guy? I don't think so. I love the double down strategy. And remember, Clinton Gore was a double down strategy. There's two guys from the South that were considered relatively moderate to conservative Democrats. It wasn't true. Al Gore was actually relatively progressive, especially back then.
Oh, yeah.
But the image was, yeah, we're doubling down. And what that said and what that communicated to the voters in an effective way was, I'm confident of my position. This is the correct position, and I'm going to proceed from strength. So if she did Gretchen Whitmer and Kamala Harris and Gretchen Whitmer, I think that's a super strong ticket. And that Michigan is an even more important state than Pennsylvania is. So, and it's certainly more important than Arizona in terms of the swing states.
Is she out of the running now? Is she out of the running now that she said, I'm going to manage this campaign?
Yeah, no, nonsense. Of course not. That's all politicians say that. And the minute you say, I briefly ran, and I've got a devastating point about that in a second, but I briefly ran in this primary against Joe Biden because I was desperate. I was like, Jesus, somebody get in there, right? We're on the Titanic. Somebody dive for the wheel, right? So that's why I did that primary run. And look, real quick, the devastating point about that is that I've got more votes for president than Kamala Harris does. And so we should have vetted more. But what's done is done. What's done is done, and infinitely better than Joe Biden, right? Joe Biden was a guaranteed loss. But anyway, in the midst of that, you see some things that are important. And Michigan, we need it. It's inarguable. We can't not win Michigan. And so if you're going to go for a swing state, it's got to be Michigan, and Whitmer is popular there. And I know, of course, from general political experience that when somebody says, hey, do you want the vice presidency? And they say no, they don't mean it. So like right now, when people ask, hey, Cenk, are you thinking of angling for something? I'm like, oh, hell no. No, mission accomplished. I was trying to get Biden out. He's out. I'm thrilled. Fly the victory flag. I'm done with this thing, right? And I love being on the Young Turks. I don't need any of that. Now, that's being said, if Kamala Harris comes and says, hey, do you want to be VP? I go, oh, yeah, of course.
Of course.
Right. So Gretchen Whitmer will say the same thing, but 10 times over because she actually wants it.
And to your point, Whitmer makes a lot of sense also because while Pennsylvania is a necessary state, or it's an important state, there is a path to victory without it, as you pointed out. But also, those uncommitted votes, that uncommitted movement in Michigan is going to be rough to overcome because her foreign policy, and particularly her Israel-Palestine policy, is no different than Biden's. It may even be, I just don't know. It could be the exact same. It could be worse. It could only be marginally better. And so having a governor from that state might be the thing that pulls you over if you're Kamala Harris, because it's not going to be your foreign policy bona fides, and it's certainly not going to be your appeal to progressives on Israel-Palestine.
Yeah, so far there's a couple of tea leaves that say that she's a little bit better than Biden on Palestine. But look, it's damning with faint praise. So in March, she was going to give a speech about how, a little bit more acknowledging the Palestinian suffering and Palestinian rights. And apparently the National Security Council vetoed it and said, no, don't say that, which then makes me think, wait, who's in charge? Because if I'm the vice president and the National Security Council says, don't give us your real opinion and don't tell us that Palestinians should have rights, I'd be like, well, I'll take it under advisement. Right. And then I'd say whatever the hell I wanted because I got news for them. I'm the vice president and they're not. But that is not how she reacted. She did edit the speech, but at least she had that instinct. And today, New York Post is smearing Doug Emhoff's daughter, so hence Kamala Harris's stepdaughter, saying that she was raising money for UNRWA. And hey, that sounds great. UNRWA
if her stepdaughter is raising funds for the United Nations Relief Works Agency, I'm not going to say it will make me vote for her, but it would at least make me say, hey, maybe there's something here that I didn't expect.
Yeah. And so absolutely. So that's a tiny bit encouraging. But at the end of the day, our Israel policy isn't going to change. Right. So that's that. But anyways, if you ask me my dream pick, though, the guy that if they say, hey, Cenk, you get to make the pick, I'd pick Jamie Raskin.
Really?
So, yeah. So here's why. Jamie Raskin, first of all, unites every part of the party. The establishment likes him. Progressives love him. What's that?
He's popular on YouTube.
Yeah, he is. He's popular on YouTube. Part of the reason he's popular on YouTube is because he's good at talking. which is what we need in a VP to be a little bit of an attack dog. And then remember this, he was one of the guys who prosecuted Donald Trump. So he's already known for kicking Donald Trump's ass. And then the last part is the most important part. He's one of the smartest Democrats in the country. And, that might be a low bar too. I'm sorry, but, my Democratic Party officials are not the brightest bulbs, having picked Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden in 24. I don't have a lot of respect for them. But nevertheless, Raskin is a super smart guy. And so I think you go towards your strengths.
One. I mean, look, the last time somebody ran for vice president, there was a Spiro Agnew. Yeah, so I don't know if Maryland has the most decorated history, but
I hear you on that, but that was a long time ago.
I know. It's just a little extra dig at Spiro Agnew. I'll just make sure this guy has his taxes right. But Raskin could be interesting. I don't see that happening, but I think your point is well taken. I think she's going to want a governor. I think she's going to want someone with executive experience and some more gravitas. But I think that'd be an amazing pick. I would be excited by that choice. I'd be energized by that choice. This is why I ask you questions, man. You just gave me more energy than I already had. Right now, I'm still struggling with the idea of pulling the lever for genocide. I'm still struggling with pulling the lever for anybody in this Democratic Party. But at the very least, even what you said tonight gives me at least a pathway to hope and possibility. It ain't going to come through an open convention, but maybe it'll come through scrutiny that she's going to have to withstand in order to get this, not just the nomination, but to actually win.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm exactly where you are in the sense that I'm not ready to say that, Kamala Harris is our answer and she's God's gift to Democratic Party and progressives and people looking for peace and equality, et cetera, et cetera. And she's got a lot left to prove, both in terms of being a good candidate and most importantly, if she wins, in terms of being a good president. And that's a whole different push that we'll have to get to at some point. On the other hand, we all should be excited because we just went from about 100% chance that Donald Trump was going to be reelected to 50% chance that Donald Trump is going to be reelected. And that's gigantic. And I'll definitely take that win.
I will take that too. My friend, always good to see you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for a little bit, man. And the next time you run, let me work on your campaign, man. We're going to push you into victory.
Okay, well, hopefully there won't be a next time, but I appreciate it.
Fair enough. All right, my friend. Talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Everybody, make sure you watch the Young Turks every chance you get. He is, Cenk Uygur is one of the smartest minds, one of the, really most courageous voices, and his willingness to actually stand up and do something, whether it's speaking on Israel-Palestine, whether it's demanding a Democratic primary, an actual democratic process inside the Democratic primary. This speaks to his courage and his willingness to be unpopular if it's necessary for a moment in order to secure a greater possibility for our country to be as good as it can be. And the people be mad at you for a day or a week or a month, but they come back around because ultimately the people know who is working with us and for us. He absolutely is working with us and for us. Before we go tonight, y'all, I want to point out another thing that has happened. The Kamala attacks the Kamala attacks have begun. The moment Kamala Harris announced that she was going to run for the presidency, or that she was going to seek the nomination for the presidency, it was absolutely clear that she was going to be under attack. Why? Because every single person who runs for the presidency is under attack. Everybody's record gets scrutinized. Everybody gets pressured. Everybody has their past dug into in very particular ways. But Kamala Harris has had different kinds of attacks, just like Sarah Palin had different kinds of attacks, just like Hillary Clinton had different kinds of attacks. Lots of people get different kinds of attacks based on, sadly, their race or their gender or other factors that shouldn't be factors, but ultimately become factors. I want to show you something that came up on Twitter. Twitter has crashed for the moment. I don't know if Elon went broke or whatever, so I want to show it to you on another site because Twitter has gone down. But when you look at Twitter, I'm just going to show you one tweet that came out last night, and this isn't the only one, but this is just an example of one, right? And Newsweek ran an article, which is why you see their header there. Will Chamberlain says, really simple, under-discussed reason why Kamala Harris shouldn't be president. No children. No children. No children. And when he followed up, when they followed up, and said, well, why does that matter? He said that she wouldn't be able to, empathize with families and children, that parents and families, because she doesn't have children. And look, there are a lot of reasons not to support Kamala Harris. Lots of them. Lots of them. She said, in fact, to quote him directly, he said, the concerns of parents and families will always be abstract to her. So there's so many things wrong with this. So first let me talk about what's wrong with the actual argument, right? Just because that's what we do here, right? I want to make sure first that people understand what's actually wrong with the argument. He's framing no children purely as at the level of choice. Plenty of women don't have children, not because they don't want them, because they can't have them. And other women don't have children because they don't want them. But to frame not having children as a character issue, or as an inherent default, is deeply problematic, and it's not something that we assign to men. George Washington, the founding father, the father of our nation, as they like to say, right? The founding patriarch of this country, right? He ain't had no kids. Andrew Jackson didn't have any kids. Buchanan didn't have any kids. Polk, I don't believe, had any kids, right? Lots of people don't have kids, and we've never said that was a deficit for them. We only do that to women. And the ironic thing is, if she had had a bunch of children, they would say, you're a terrible mother for going to work, or you're a terrible mother for becoming a senator or a vice president or president. Why are you doing that when you got them kids at home? You can't win, right? Women are faced with these impossible circumstances and impossible criticisms. That's the first part of it. It's just a bad argument. And the second part of the bad argument is this idea that the idea of children and families, is that what it said? The idea of children and families, well, the concerns, of parents and families will always be abstract to her. First of all, just because you don't have children doesn't mean you don't have family. People have families all the time. She was part of a family. She had parents. She has a niece. She has a sister. She has loved ones. She has people she cares for. She's also a stepmother. Now, the kids were older, and it's not the same thing as raising someone from birth. And it's not the same thing as, every other circumstance. Every circumstance is different. But I don't want to assume that she doesn't understand family because her family formation might be different than yours or mine. Everybody's is different. That's ridiculous. Here's the other thing. If you can only concretely understand these feelings if you've experienced them directly, then why were you comfortable voting for Donald Trump for president, or more importantly, as commander-in-chief, when he's never been in the military? Right? Commander-in-chief is a big part of being a president. We're an empire. We're a militaristic, war hawkish empire. We love to kick ass and take names. We love a good war and proxy war. We love a good threat. So if the soldiers and the troops and the veterans and the and the men in uniform are our highest national priority, wouldn't the idea of troops and war and soldiers and Marines and all that stuff, wouldn't all of that be abstract to Mr. Bone Spurs, Donald Trump, who didn't just not join the military, but basically draft dodged? Or to Joe Biden? Or to Barack Obama? Democrat, Republican, whatever. If military is the biggest job you have, the commander-in-chief is the most treasured title you have as president, and you ain't been none of it. Isn't that just an abstract idea? Interesting, right? So let's not pretend that it's a non-starter. But even if it were, even if somebody who doesn't understand values of family and children and parenting, even if someone who doesn't value those ideas is anathema to you, you can't rock with it at all. What has Mr. Trump done in his life? His multiple children, multiple women. Again, I'm not judging that. I'm not assigning a value to it, but I'm saying if you believe that family values and traditional family and conservative family values and all that stuff is the way to go, what the hell does Donald Trump show you to make you think that he sees it as anything more than an abstract idea? Does he love family? Does he support family? Does he speak back to the concern? What family concerns has Donald Trump through his life suggested that he understands? Absolutely none. So let's be honest here. Your criticisms of Kamala and her motherhood are bullshit. Then you get the people calling her a DEI hire. The woman has gone to elite schools, starting with HU, you know. She has a law degree. She was an attorney general, state attorney general. Again, she was district attorney and state attorney general. Again, I don't support that. I'm an abolitionist, but it's a qualification. She was in the US Senate and not from a state with 5 people in it. She won a very tough election in California. She then became vice president. And for the last almost 4 years, she's been vice president of this country. On what planet is she not qualified? On what planet is she simply DEI? I wish y'all would stop saying DEI and just say nigger, because that's what y'all mean. I wish y'all would just call me that. DEI. Every time a black person do something, y'all say DEI. Kamala Harris is a lot of things. She is a neoliberal. She is a war hawk. She is a Zionist. She is a corporate candidate. There are a million reasons to not want to vote for Kamala Harris. There are a million legitimate and principled critiques to be made of Kamala Harris. But coming for her for race, calling her DEI hire, the DEI hire? Coming for her through gender issues, you don't have children, therefore you don't understand. These are not it. And even if I ultimately don't stand with Kamala Harris on the political and ideological issues that we debate or that we discuss, I'm still going to stand up and speak out against the misogyny and the racism and the misogynoir that is undergirding these criticisms of her. So please don't think, and also if you're on the left, don't abandon her. You can criticize her. Some of y'all aren't going to vote for her. Some of you are going to say, look, I'm voting Green, I'm voting People's Party, I'm voting Communist Party. That's fine. But don't then allow racist and sexist critiques to prevail under the premise or the ruse of ideological clarity. Ideological clarity doesn't mean that you let people call her out her name, that you disrespect her, that you disrespect her traditions, her institutions. Don't tell me. Anyway, we can do two things at once. We can critique and we can be principled. That means that Kamala Harris must be respected. She must be protected, but she must also be corrected. So again, Kamala Harris's position on Israel-Palestine is awful so far, unless something radical changes. Her position is awful. Her position on criminal justice is awful. Her position on school policy Awful. At least as it pertained to parents. I mean, she was the one trying to lock up parents for truancy. You can do all your days. You can spend all your days criticizing her on those issues. You can spend all of your time tearing her up. I'm not defending her. I'm defending the principle because let me be clear. When you stand up and say that she shouldn't be president because she doesn't have children, because she's childless, you're not just coming for Kamala, you're coming for women everywhere who are being judged through their bodies, who are being judged through these patriarchal lenses. If somebody said Barack Obama ain't ain't nothing because he's a neoliberal war hawk and empire manager, I'd say cool. But if you also call him the N-word when you say it, I'm not going to be like, well, he is a neoliberal empire manager, so you can call him a nigga if you want. No, you can not be racist, and we can tear him down for his mistakes, and we can not vote for him. I'm not telling you to vote for Kamala. I'm just saying don't disrespect her. And I would say the same thing about anybody else. Anyway, somebody just said we should just use Tulsi's arguments. That's my point. There are ways to critique her in principle, with honesty and transparency. We ain't gotta also be disrespectful to our people, to our traditions, and neglect the issues that are bigger than her. Because when Kamala loses this race, we still got to deal with racism and sexism. When Kamala wins this race, we got to deal with racism and sexism. So let's also be honest about that. Before we go, a couple quick comments coming in. Aaron Bush says it's a crossover episode. No, it's not a crossover episode, but it was good to have him on the show to offer his perspective and some insider analysis. I think that's great. Zakia Simpson said, don't mind me, just pay it down my tuition. I love that. I love that. I appreciate you, Zakia. Thank you so much for donating to the channel as always. Bullet the Bunny offered a wonderful question, and of course, Cenk sort of answered it, which for him is simply like we're past it. An open primary would be great, but it's too late to even engage that. I think he may have said, yeah, it was worth it to pull the party apart. Ultimately, for me, it's not about pulling the party apart because I don't care about the Democratic Party. It's about what does democracy require. And I think whatever party you are, I'm a Green Party member. In the Green Party, we have this thing called transparency and democratic process. I believe in it. I think everybody should have it. Callie said, how influential do you think the Black Boule links in Black nobility raising 81? Oh, let's be clear. Black folk got into formation for her. Black women yesterday got busy for her. And Black men right now, as we speak, are getting busy for her in terms of organizing, planning, and donating. So it's not clear whether that'll be enough to get her over the hurdle. But what is clear is that if she wins, it's going to be because of the organizing power of Black people, and specifically the organizing power of Black women. What that may do is create an energy around her that then extends beyond Black people to those young college students who have been disillusioned under Biden, to the progressives, to the formerly incarcerated, to some elderly folk, to some swing voters who never really wanted Trump but are scared to death of a Biden presidency. It's possible that these things will matter. I mean, that these things will turn the corner. I don't know if it's enough for her to win. I'm inclined to say it is not as of now. It is not enough for her to win, but it is enough to make this a competitive race. And if it's a competitive race, anything can happen. For the hustle, I always got the hustle bullet. I'm hustling y'all and the love. I appreciate you. We got a question coming in from Medina Ouedraogo. I know I messed your name up. Forgive me. Ouedraogo, maybe. Mark, what are your thoughts on the Working Families Party versus the Green Party versus the Socialism and Liberation versus DSA. It's a good question. I don't like to use the language of versus because I don't see them as political enemies. I see us all as comrades fighting and organizing for the same thing. I'm a member of the Green Party, so I'm partial. But I love what the Working Family Party is doing. I love what the Party for Socialism is doing to the extent that I've seen. And I love what DSA is doing to the extent that I've seen. Now, DSA has been cracking the whip lately, pushing people out, telling people they ain't DSA no more. They're holding a political standard. They're holding a political line. Holding a political line, I think, is important and necessary. And I give thanks to people who hold a standard and don't just say, hey, you can be a DSA, a Green, or whatever, or Working Families Party just because you say you are. Nah, there has to be a political standard that is held and maintained through your public work, through your political work, through your organizing actions. So I love all of them. What I would love to see right now is instead of a bunch of verses, I'd love to see all of us organize, coalesce, and come together and present a single candidate in November. Because with Democratic Party in crisis and Trump maybe not having enough juice to win this thing if we fight right, I don't know. This is a moment to not just defeat Trump, which I think is urgent, but also to really build and organize our party, really build a third party movement. This is an opportunity to beat Trump. I don't think that that's a light thing. I don't think that that's an insignificant thing. But beating Trump has to be more than that, because if we beat Trump and just have the same old corporate party recycling itself, where does that get us? Now, again, let me be clear. The number one priority to me right now is stopping Trump. It is the absolute number one priority to me. As we're doing that, let's think about what else we can do simultaneously. That's all. So that's the last question. I want to thank y'all for watching. Oh, I'm sorry, we have one more here. Did you see Tucker Carlson tell Trump 1 month before the attempt if he didn't pick J.D. Vance, he would get assassinated? I did not see that. I don't know if that's true. I got to do some reading. Send me the email. Send me an email to the channel. Let me look that up. We got to figure that out. I didn't learn that. Anyway, thank you for watching the channel. I know it's been a crazy night. Again, I'm at the hospital with some family here all day, last 15 hours. So forgive me if there's any audio or sound challenges. Princess, please forgive me for all the ways I messed up this feed. I'm sure I've messed up a bunch of stuff, but I love and appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button and the subscribe button so that the YouTube algorithms and the corporate media platforms know that they're not the only game in town, that we have a footprint and we have a voice and we want to make it heard. So make sure you check us out every single night here, Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. We really appreciate it. Also, family, if you're so inclined, hit the join button right now. If you're on your phone, go to the desktop. If you're on the desktop, hit the join button. And when you hit the join button, you can become a monthly subscriber to the channel. By becoming a monthly subscriber to the channel, you give us the economic legs we need to sustain ourselves and to build and grow. The studio we need to build, the employees we need to buy, we need to hire, the technology we need to buy. All of it requires an economic investment, and we don't have a billionaire behind us. We don't have corporate media underwriting us. We do it with the power of you. So every single time that you donate, we get a little bit stronger. Everybody, if you can't make a monthly commitment, make sure you go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle right now and make a one-time payment. You can pay your monthly tuition in night school right now by dropping whatever you want. If you drop $1 in, we're grateful. If you drop $1 million in, we're grateful. Whatever you drop in between that 1 and that 1 million, we're equally grateful. Anything you can drop in is much appreciated. But if everybody watching right now were to donate $10, if everybody watching right now were to donate a minimum of $10, we would meet all of our programming goals, all of our financial goals for the month. So just consider for this month, just dropping $10 in through Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle right now. We'd be greatly appreciative. Family, thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.